Our next guest is easily one of the hardest working guys in the sport, but also one of the best analysts, you know, from his excellent work on CBS Sports, Showtime, and of course, Morning Combat. With him and Brian Campbell are currently balls deep in the excellent Canelo Plant Fight Week coverage, man. I can't wait for this one as well, man. It's going to be such a big boxing match. The Silver Fox of MMA, the Richard Gere of Submission Radio is back in the house. Luke Thomas, welcome back to your MMA equivalent of ping in the public pool when nobody's watching. A guilty pleasure. How are you, man?
It is one of the guiltiest pleasures, yet one of the simplest. And in that way, it's great. Hi, boys. How you doing?
Yeah,
nice
good.
to be back.
Very good, very good. I figured we'd kick it off on the right note. Just quickly, before we get balls deep into UFC 268, just a quick, I have to commend you guys, you and Brian. I feel like Morning Combat's really kind of coming into its own. I feel like the vision that you guys kind of set out, it's sort of coming to fruition. You've got Chuck Mindenhall making appearances. You guys are doing the rooftop stuff. I love what you guys are doing, man.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. Thank you. I feel like we still have a very long way to go. We're kind of halfway towards a lot of things that we're working on, but, you know, I guess it takes time. And the good news is going full time gave us some options, but then the pandemic hit. And I mean, I wouldn't be going 3 days a week to the studio anyway. It just wouldn't work. But we finally have put together like a better content plan, like how to like get ahead of these things. And we recorded that rooftop chat with Chuck like 3 weeks ago. And we were just hoping like, please God, let there be no injuries. And there still might be, but at least by the time we released it, it kind of all worked. And so thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate everyone who watches or listens to the show. We're trying to do something a little bit different, and we hope folks like it.
Yeah, man. Get the acceptance speech ready for the World MMA Awards. You guys are nominated. So
please. Oh, fucking please. Dude, we went up against like Rogan and I forget, it was like,
who?
Some of their like official UFC. Joe Rogan has got nominated for that. Dude, like the Rogan.
I think I've heard of that guy.
I don't think we're going to beat them, but I was surprised to see us even nominated, so that was cool.
Well, yeah, look, I was going to say, man, you guys are absolutely killing it. And I also love all the social media stuff that you guys do and the personality you guys have. It's really, really awesome to see. But let's get into UFC 268, man, because there are so many big fights to talk about. Since the first fight in the big main event, you know, Kamaru Usman has been on an absolute destructive tear. He's knocked out Gilbert Burns and Jorge Masvidal. Also beat Masvidal the first time. His technique is better. His power has started to become devastating. And meanwhile, Colby's finished Tyron Woodley in a fight where, you know, we saw better body kicks and head movement. Overall, what would you say have been the biggest improvements from both guys as we go into Madison Square Garden this weekend, Luke?
Well, candidly, I don't know what we would say about Colby, which is not to say that there have not been improvements. In fact, I'm certain that there have. And more to the point, even imagine if he had not had sustained the damage, but somehow lost the fight in the way that he had, which I realize is an impossibility. But what I mean to say is if they had had it the very next week, if that was physically even possible, I don't think he would have employed the same strategy. So even if he had the exact same level of ability, the strategy is going to change, I think, accordingly, with a lot more wrestling being involved there. Now, will he be able to execute that, and how will he set it up? These are things that remain somewhat unknown, given that we didn't see really any of that the first time. But, you know, candidly, there's not really a lot of evidence that Colby has leveled up in some kind of dramatic way. We've seen him, I think, just the one time since, really. It's just not been, since the pandemic anyway, it's not been a lot of tape on him. So and he did change camps, which is something that he and Kamaru kind of have in common, albeit for very different kind of reasons. But folks don't realize this, dude. MMA Masters out of Miami, man, this is a very, very good camp. Whether you want to call it the best camp in Florida or however you want to rank it, it is a world-class camp. World-class fighters go there and then come out of there. So I'm sure he has leveled up in some way, but the specifics of which are hard to tell. It's the one with Kamaru that really kind of stands out. And I say this every time we bring it up, and I really want to hammer this because I just don't want it to get lost. Dude, Trevor Whitman is entitled to all of the praise, or virtually all of the praise, I should say, that comes his way. But Kamaru quite literally was a championship level fighter under the tutelage of Henry Hooft. Yes, I think he has leveled up by getting a different look and getting the particular kinds of gifts that a coach as smart and as talented and as experienced as Whitman can offer. But I just don't want people to lose sight of that. In terms of the specifics of what your question is driving at, I just think a lot better, dude. His movement behind the jab, the way he sets it up, he gets off at angles. He understands feinting much better. His striking feints have gotten better. Folks forget feinting is, in fact, a skill. He always kind of had the the threat of that takedown, obviously, but he has much more nimbly woven the two together. His understanding of range is better. And obviously his wrestling has been kind of what it's always been. But to me, the boxing has just dramatically come to life. And if you sort of follow the ways in which Trevor Whitman has taught many of his students, or if you just look at his, quite literally, I didn't wear this on purpose, but his BJJ Fanatics tutorials, what you'll see is this guy is very much about resetting angles, never being 50-50 with an opponent, understanding when to press the gas, understanding when to press the brakes, and Kamaru has taken it like a duck to water. He's made a shit ton of improvement, and I think no matter who is across the cage from Kamaru on that Saturday night, they're going to have a hard time.
And I guess with Covington as well, they've probably got a few ideas as to what kind of improvements he might make. But I wonder, do you think there's any advantage in the fact that they don't actually really know what kind of fighter they'll be facing come this weekend? Obviously, they fought him once. Obviously, we've seen his performance against Tyron Woodley. But, you know, this is a guy that obviously improves every time we see him. He's always got that great cardio. He's always sort of game and in great shape. But you don't really know what kind of improvements or what kind of Colby Covington's going to be in there as he steps in. Do you think there's any sort of kind of, you know, the improvement there, any kind of, I suppose, surprise thing there that could benefit Covington?
Yes, but mild. In other words, that could benefit again. And I think, by the way, whatever improvements he has made, like they're not just going to live by themselves. They're going to be baked into the strategy, right? Like if your jab has really improved, or your hook uppercut, or some kind of combination from some kind of setup has really come to life, they're going to find a way to weave that into the strategy. So it should be known. But I tend to think that will only present itself fairly early. Fairly early, I think he might have a potential advantage because you are playing a little bit with the unknowns. You know the takedown might be coming. You just don't know when. You don't know what circumstances. You don't know what he's going to do to chain the takedown together, how he might look to abandon it and then just go to get the back, or will he change off to a leg attack? Will he go? You just don't know what to expect in that way and how he all might set it up. I think that part is potentially quite true, as a matter of fact. Like they're going to put Kamaru on his heels potentially quite early, or at least they're going to try, I suspect. But if the fight goes longer, if the strategy didn't work and there's a decent chance Kamaru will take at least some of that away from him, I think that advantage will evaporate pretty quickly. It's going to be something early that they can establish, but I don't know that it's going to work over the long haul unless their strategy is just so unique and so good they can exact it over the course of 5 rounds. You know what I mean? So certainly I think Kamaru is going to be a bit on his heels, but Kamaru might come out there and try and set the tone behind what he is doing in the striking department. I do wonder, though, like something that no one's really ever asked or ever thought about is, have we ever seen Kamaru on his back? Like, even if he doesn't stay there for very long, just the sight of Colby potentially hitting some kind of single leg to the back, to a mat return, to, a Dagestani handcuff, and he rolls, and all of a sudden Kamaru is on his back, you might be like, holy shit, like, how did we get here? That's not the same as sustained offense over the course of time. And remember, one thing that Colby has really, really, really lacked in his game is the biggest piece missing to me is ground and pound. He has not much ground and pound to speak of at all. If you go back to the Robbie Lawler fight, there's pitter patter, there's activity. I don't want to say that he's not doing anything. He is doing a shit ton. I mean, it's raining, but it's not pouring, and there's no thunder, there's no lightning on top. It's just sort of steady drizzle, right? And that's enough to win the fight. But against Kamaru, who can probably get up, and you're not hurting him there. See, this is why I think Colby's got a bit of a, not I won't say long shot, but he's kind of up against it, because it's hard for me to believe just purely standing he can beat him. Cardio for cardio, Usman's hard to beat. Even if you get him down, and you might hold him down, you're not going to beat him up a whole lot while he's down there. The submission threats are real. That remains something hard to anticipate. Gilbert Burns didn't have a whole lot of success with it, but Colby might have a different approach. There are avenues to victory, but they really require a leveled up Colby and a particular strategy and pre-gaming that will have to be just on point to get the job done.
So do you think that the wrestling will be a massive part of Colby's success if he is to have any? If he's going to adjust his game plan and change things and change the outcome of the fight, how much of it do you think has to be a massive focus on wrestling? And that's the fascinating thing, and I hope they wrestle, because in the first, you got two of the best wrestlers in the division, and in the first fight, we saw basically zero of it. Do you think that's different this time around?
It has to be. It has to be. I mean, people forget about this. In Colby's defense, man, he got dropped in the 5th. He was on his way to losing. But I go back to this all the time. The scores on the judges' tables, whether you agree with them or not, 1-3, 3-1, 2-2. Dude, that was a live 5th round, man. That was as live as they came. Now, I think Kamaru is just way better. BJJ Scout has a video. If you go back and he compares the jab in the Colby fight to the jab in, I want to say, the Burns fight, maybe the second Masvidal fight. Either way, but he shows you all the ways in which it is now much more nimble, much more effective. So we're not talking about the same things at this point. But dude, like, Colby was fucking in there with him, and it just wasn't enough in the end. He can complain about the stoppage from Mark Goddard. You can make what you want of that, but he was on his way by the time the 5th round was, heading towards its conclusion. He was losing at that point. Up to it, though, it was, it was a jump ball. I would say that, in looking at that and just being honest, to not, and seeing what Kamaru just did to Jorge. I mean, dude, Kamaru did to Jorge like no one does that to Jorge. Jorge's been knocked down. Jorge's been hurt. Jorge's lost fights. Okay, but like one-hitter quitters on Jorge, that just doesn't happen until it did, right? So if you're just looking at that and they don't have a wrestling game plan, I would consider that one of the most negligent fucking things I've ever seen. Like, how do you not? You've got a guy who's got, basically probably as good cardio as the champ, maybe better. We'll have to see. He can wrestle his ass off behind it and doesn't have some tools that he might need to win, but certainly that is like in the plus column. It just, it's glaring neon sign. And you didn't get it done striking on the last time. And by the way, the striking is now going to be even more. I mean, how could you not do it? But the question you have to ask yourself, and we don't know, what happens if it doesn't work? Right, you can have all of the rest. Like, he went back to the wrestling in the Robbie Lawler fight because Lawler couldn't do shit about it. Basically, I mean, not much. Right, he didn't get ultimately overwhelmed and put on his back and mounted and submitted or something, but he couldn't get Colby off of him. What if Kamaru easily gets Colby off of him? There has to be some kind of other angle to pivot to. So the question is not, are they going to incorporate wrestling? I tend to think that they do. The question is, what are they looking for in the openings that Kamaru leaves that give them some potential entries? Is he particularly susceptible to single legs? If there's a certain kind of single leg finish, is it the double? Are there moments to attack as he stance switches? Do you want to attack the stance switch as a way to deter both the stance switch itself and then find a particular opening from a defensive wrestling standpoint? Like, there's all these little details there. And I think from that standpoint, they need to have an answer for all of the various contexts they can find themselves in. Because if they just banked on, well, if we can just get Colby to get two hands around the waist and that will take care of itself, I think they're going to have a long night, or potentially a short one, but not the one they're planning.
The mental battles going into the fight as well, Luke. There should be some explosive back and forth during fight week. I already see Kamaru Usman, though, already sort of saying that he kind of respects Covington. It looks like he's already getting ready for the fact that, Covington's going to be throwing a lot of stuff his way, and he's looking to sort of level himself off a little bit, not get too emotional. If you're Covington, obviously you want to try and get Kamaru Usman as emotional as possible to try and make as many mistakes on fight night as possible. But what are you expecting from this sort of clash of minds and I suppose trash talk as we go into the fight? Do you think it's going to be anything out of the ordinary from what we saw in the first one? And after Kamaru Usman's sort of been in there with all these guys and done all this stuff, do you think he's kind of leveled up a little bit mentally as well in terms of dealing with all these kinds of trash talky situations?
They both been very quiet leading into this one.
Yes.
Silent.
Totally. When we had Chuck on the rooftop, we talked about it. It's like, dude, the first time there, what we thought it was going to be, I mean, I hate to put in these terms, but we were like, is there going to be some kind of like racial component here? Like, where is this going? Where is this going to go? And of course, it never got quite to the ugliest of levels that were imaginable, although I wouldn't call it the friendliest trash talk I've ever seen. But this time around, you don't see a whole lot. Dude, this one for me has flipped. And I don't know if folks out there feel the same. I don't pretend to know this. I'm just telling you what I feel. Your mileage may vary. But to me, this feels like the trash talk and stuff. Like, dude, Kamaru, I don't know his political worldview, but I tend to believe it's probably a lot more similar to Colby's than people want to imagine. There was a lot of people who disliked Colby and the whole Donald Trump MAGA thing and wanted Kamaru, the black immigrant, to be something for them or for some kind of message because of their political preferences. And, you can like that or you can hate that, but I don't see a lot of that this time. I don't know that Kamaru has really distanced himself from some of the exact same views that Colby has. To me, it's not really about that this time, quite thank God. To me, dude, this is all about legacy. Big time, big time, big time, big time. And I think both guys are feeling it. Colby got back here, right? And he talked his way a little bit back here, but he earned his way a little bit back here. But dude, if you don't beat Kamaru this time, you ain't getting any younger. Here comes Khamzat Chimaev like a fucking freight train through the rankings. Like, if you're going to get the belt, dude, it's time. Conversely, if you're Kamaru Usman, dude, this guy just striking put you through the ringer last time. He got it done. He got it done emphatically by the time he got his hand raised. But that was a tough ass fight. They would both tell you the same. You have to assume on some level, even if it's not true, if you're Kamaru, just from a competitive standpoint, you just have to assume your opponent is going to be better this time, right? Just as a matter of precaution. And dude, we're talking about a guy in Kamaru Usman. I don't know why there's not enough discussion of this. He is headed, he's not there yet. And I think even with this Colby win, he's not there yet. But he's not that far from what St. Pierre did. And I think we just need to say that out loud. We're talking about a guy at welterweight who is doing absolutely incredible things. And his foe, he might beat twice. He had to beat Masvidal twice. He's got to beat a lot of these guys a couple of times because that same generation is coming through again. That's exactly what St. Pierre did, generation after generation, or the best guys of his generation getting a couple of tries. And you have to whack-a-mole all of them down. And you get enough of those, and you begin to be like, wow, dude, this guy's doing something very special, 170 pounds. That's what this, to me, is all about. I think both guys in their own way with their own set of challenges are feeling that, and that's why there's trash talk. It could get ugly. It probably will on some level. Both guys are pretty intense. There's a lot at stake, but it's about those stakes. It's about the fight itself, which is it was the first time, but everyone else wanted it to be something more than what it was. Now we boiled it down to mano a mano, Saturday night, New York City, Madison Square Garden, and maybe one of the best welterweights of all time against maybe his top rival. Folks, this is what MMA is all about right here.
And to your point, Luke, just before you go, Dennis, it reminds me of like John Jones, where there was this aura of like, hey, you may be good, you may be great, but while I'm around, you'll never be champion kind of thing. There's a lot of guys fighting for that kind of second position, so to speak.
And Luke, speaking of fight week, I mean, we see with the New York Knicks, Madison Square Garden is one of the rowdiest places in the NBA. Who do you think the crowd's booing and who do you think the crowd's cheering as we go into here? Because Colby Covington, he's really built a really big fan base, even bigger so compared to that first fight.
Yes, that's true. I mean, here's the only part about that, though. There will be lots of people who travel to this event, but fuck, I even hate to bring this up, but it is kind of relevant. I think the audience has to be vaccinated, right? That's sadly going to deter some of red state America. New York is already a blue state. And were you guys there for the BMF fight? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys remember,
we did a shot together. What do you mean we drank Jorge Masvidal?
That's right. I drank Jorge Masvidal's leftovers. Yes. I'm a gross human being. But you guys remember, like there were definitely some cheers for Trump, but there was a shitload of boos too. Just calling it down the middle. And Joe Rogan said the exact same thing. So the state tends to skew politically in a way that would maybe give Colby more boos than cheers, maybe Kamaru. I think also one thing we're not bringing up is I remember after the Kamaru knockout of Jorge, I was like, wow, dude, that was like super special what he just did. And then I noticed I started seeing him on bigger and bigger shows and podcasts, and he was on Hot Ones. As soon as I saw Kamaru on Hot Ones, you guys know the Hot Wing show?
Yeah, we met Sean Evans.
That's right. Oh, okay, cool. So once I saw
anything about us, Luke, I thought you knew us. Don't remember us. Don't know whether we once met Sean Evans randomly on the street. Don't know anything
I'm sorry. But I was just going to point out, like once Kamaru hit that, I was like, oh, okay. So he's leveled up in popularity now.
Mm.
Once you start getting invites like that, you're really beginning to leave the sort of the MMA sphere in a big way. I think Kamaru is also not just a better fighter than he once was. Colby is more popular. There's no denying that relative to the first fight, but I think Kamaru is also really leveled up in terms of being a popular and celebrated attraction in mixed martial arts. So they'll be both, I think, a couple of different ways, but I think Kamaru will probably get a few more cheers.
100% agree with you about the Hot Ones thing. When I saw that, I was like, wow, Usman on Hot Ones. Jesus, Ali pulling some strings. But and also, like, I think it just quickly, we'll move off this fight in a second, but I think one of the reasons why Colby is not promoting is in his usual style is I just think it's the mentality of like, well, you're not paying me to. When we spoke to him, we asked if he's getting, an incredible rate or pay-per-view buys or anything, and he said no. So I think he's kind of like, look, I've done that. I'm not going to do it this time. There's no point. There's no incentive for me. It's not like people don't know who he is. He's already, he's done his thing. But as far as what's next, I mean, if Leon beats Jorge, do you think he'll finally get the next title shot? Or say if Jorge beats Leon, he could have a huge fight against Colby. I mean, the interest for an Usman Masvidal rematch, it just wouldn't be there at all. So you think the UFC would do you think maybe they just give it to Khamzat? Or if Colby wins, would they do the trilogy fight immediately afterwards? Something that Colby actually said that he would like to do.
Yeah, I think if Colby wins, the trilogy is probably likely.
And then maybe you build up Khamzat in the background if Jorge wins again.
That's exactly right. There's a couple of different options you could play with there once that gets going. But let's say Usman wins. What do you do? See, I mean, look, guys, it's not hard to make a case, especially if Edwards beats Masvidal. Like, is it hard to make a case for him for a title shot? No, it's super easy. It's very, very straightforward. It's like, well, just look. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to make that make that argument. But a couple things, man. One, Usman already beat him. He beat him in a way that was not ambiguous. It's hard for me to know what would be different this time. Now, again, I'll said on this very show, that doesn't necessarily mean a guy shouldn't get a title shot. If there's a deserving contender and a available champion, sometimes you just have to defend it against the person most deserving. But from a box office standpoint, that doesn't do shit for him, and he already beat him. So that's one problem. The second problem is that you said it right there, dude. Khamzat Chimaev, I mean, that buzzsaw he turned over for the fight against the Leech. I mean, guys, it just doesn't come much better than that. It doesn't come much more authoritative than that. That is just remarkable to the nth degree. And if he gets some other fight, whether it's Nate Diaz or maybe he doesn't even get another fight, Khamzat is the wild card of all wild card. I don't think it's likely that he leapfrogs Edwards, but dude, there's a scenario where if Colby wins and Edwards beats Masvidal, they might just run the Edwards Khamzat fight, which didn't happen, but tried to get the first time around. They might just go back that thing, and then he wins that one. There's a lot of ways you can go. Let me change my headphones because this one died on me apparently. So I mean, again, I don't also think that Khamzat Leon is also the likeliest thing. I mean, it's hard to know exactly. Yes, Edwards is deserving, but there are a couple of possible permutations that could still get in the way of what Edwards is owed, especially if Khamzat has, let's say, a fight against Magny and just dusts him. I'm not saying he will, but let's say that he does theoretically, and then theoretically Edwards beats Masvidal, but it's kind of ho-hum. Dude, anything is possible at that point.
Yeah, 100%, man. Dude, I can't wait for this weekend. Such great fights. Big question, though. Where are you watching UFC 268? Are you going to be illegally streaming it like some kind of scoundrel? Don't do that. Are you buying the pay-per-view? Well, you could, but you work hard for your money. So what's better now that lockdown is over, especially here in Australia, than going to the pub, having a few cheeky pints with the boys? It's 1 p.m. this Sunday, so perfect time to start drinking. But then the question becomes, which pub? Who's showing the fights? Who's got commentary? Is there volume? Is there not? Can you eat food there? What's happening? All these questions, all these answers answered with Match Pint, your best mate for sport. You go on the app. I'll show you right now, right? Basically, it shows you all the nearest pubs that are showing the fights near you. You don't have to call around and ring them and ask them, are you showing the fights? Are you not showing the fights? I've got the app right here. You go UFC 268. It shows the prelims. You can even check who's showing the prelims. Let's go to the main card. We'll go straight into it. And then it's going to go based on the maps, whatever's nearest. All right. Hampton Park Tavern, the Sporting Globe Doncaster, the Amstel Club, the Skinny Dog. Not this time. Not this time, Skinny Dog. The Swan Hotel. I like the Swan Hotel in Richmond.
Legendary place, yeah.
Old stomping ground of Dennis. There we go. It's rated 3.8. You can rate it. Exceptional food, huge screen, great service. That's good. It's closed at the moment because it's the morning. Located. There you go. You got the location. If you click the map button, it'll take you straight there. Bang, opens up Google Maps. You got directions. I'm not going to do it because I don't want you guys knowing where I live at the moment. Features 10 screens, commentary service, food, garden, pet friendly. There you go. So look, there's even legends of the local. Everything you need to know. No more ringing around. Match Pint, without a doubt, your best mate for sport.
Yeah, that's right, man. So jump in the description below, guys. Click the link and download it today. Have a legendary weekend on Match Pint with UFC 268. What a perfect way to get back amongst it with the boys, Cass. Can't believe it. And they got the pet thing there. So Milo and Winston, our dogs, can join the action this weekend. So I can't wait for us to find a nice place to have a pint and watch a bit of UFC ourselves. But guys, speaking of UFC 268, after you guys find a place to watch it, why not make some serious money on the fight? So many crazy matchups to make money on, so many great odds, so many great opportunities to walk away as the real winner this weekend with some cash in your pocket. There's only one place to go, and that is MyBookie. Double your first deposit today with code word submission. MyBookie will look after you. The best bets, the best props, the best business in the game. Go out there, make sure you make some cash in UFC 268 this weekend with MyBookie and that code word submission.
That's right. Make a bit of change, especially as holidays are just around the corner. You're going to be buying everybody Christmas presents. It's that time already, and Christmas has come early with our good friends at Manscaped. Look, summer's... I think we're going to have to take a break from the winter jackets because it's freaking hot this morning. I'm sweating up a storm, and I need to go and, shave the old beans, if you know what I mean, with the world's greatest, the pound-for-pound best grooming tool on the market. You don't want to be going to the beach and have Santa's beard hanging out of your shorts or your swimming togs. So use the Lawnmower 4.0, 7,000 RPM of pure power, the skin-safe technology. You're not going to be, going to the beach and coming out of the water like you just got bitten by Jaws from all the nicks and cuts on your balls. Skin safe technology won't cut you. Plenty of different guards so you can texture things if you want. The travel lock so it doesn't go off in your bag. The LED light, it's waterproof. You can shave at the beach if you want, though probably not recommended. Up to 90 minutes of battery life. The 4.0, it's got a mad charger. It's just wireless charging. You just chuck it on there. It's charging in the background, always action ready. And the performance package 4.0 also comes with the crop preserver and the crop reviver, the anti-chafing ball deodorant, moisturizer, and toner, which is very important for the boys. Also the weed whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, some underwear, and the shed travel bag to, carry all around. And they got a cheeky discount, so why not get one for you and even one for a mate? And there you go. Christmas, holidays, sorted. Get them for the whole family if you want.
That's right, man. And in the fight game, reach is everything. So why not get a couple of inches thanks to Manscaped and the promo code submission that gets you 20% off and free shipping today. That's the promo code submission, 20% off and free shipping today. Get onto it now because, the post is crazy right now. You don't want to take any risks this holiday season. Get onto your Manscaped now, get your gifts ready, and have an amazing Christmas thanks to Manscaped. But Luke, let's quickly talk about Rose Namajunas versus Weili Zhang, man, because obviously this is going to be another fight that people are really, really looking forward to. What's your take on this one, man, especially with... I guess I think a lot of people are really, really looking forward to this one, Luke. Like, this is one of those fights that a lot of people are saying, yeah, like, we're looking forward to the Colby Covington Usman fight. But, this is pegged for us as possibly a fight that could be one of the fights of the night.
And just quickly, also, what do you think of the mentality of Weili Zhang? Because one of the narratives has essentially been the excuses of Weili. The weight cut, the crowd being loud and the boos, and then Weidman breaking his leg. You've seen this shift in terms of fans who kind of were like, Weili Zhang is awesome, what's not to like? And people kind of soured on her a little bit in almost a Deontay Wilder kind of sense. Although, to her credit, she's changed a lot of things. She's now training with Cejudo and Figueiredo and those guys at... Ready MMA, I think it is, in Arizona.
Yeah, the turning, partly it was that Rose is they're not equivalent in who they are, but they occupy, if you wanted to like split it by gender, they occupy the same kind of space in the hearts of fans, which is to say Rose has this kind of, again, she's completely different than them, but she kind of feels like that the attachment that the hardcore community has to her, it feels as strongly and almost as possessively as it is towards the Diaz brothers. Again, she's not a female Diaz brother. That is not at all what I am saying, but that there are this kind of iconic, totally outside the, Rose is utterly unlike many of her peers in the way she approaches life and blah, blah, blah. And then she fights with like a demon and everyone just sort of comes to life. And fans fucking love her, dude. They love Rose Namajunas. Even if she's not the most popular, the ones who know her just are super attached to her. So partly Weili's problem was that she just fought someone who was not just loved, but adored by fans. I think that was one of her problems. And then, Rose made it, I sort of understand what Rose's point was, the communist comment. I did not find that to be xenophobic in the way that others might have, but it was something of a, I won't call it clumsy, but perhaps, a comment that could be construed in a way that was designed to be insulting in a political way, and sort of it raises these culture war battles, and everything just kind of gets muddied. And maybe she got Zhang Weili, maybe she got pulled into that. Who's to say? Because to your point, she was well liked before that, and also she was coming off of, in my opinion, the greatest women's fight in mixed martial arts history. So to me, it was Rose is such a protected, not by the media per se, but the fan base. I think the attachment they have to her is profound, and so she just got caught on the wrong side of that. But I do think this fight has the potential to be extraordinary. And again, something I mentioned previously, I don't think I've ever seen this at this level where Rose Namajunas has to fight 3 opponents 6 times in a pair, in 3 sets of pairs, right? So it's Joanna, Jessica, now Zhang, all back to back like that. That is extremely unusual, and it also shows that UFC management is listening to the fan base and putting her in these very relevant fights that they want to see her in. And of course, more often than not, she performs.
It's just insane because you got, Colby and Kamaru, who's, that was like a fight of the year candidate. Then you got this one, and assuming that it goes longer than the first one, could very well be another fight of the year candidate. We might be seeing, kind of like a Joanna Zhang part 2 essentially in this fight. And then you've got Michael Chandler and Justin Gaethje as well, which is like, how can that not be a fight of the year candidate? Both guys, they go to war, both have crazy power, both have excellent wrestling. I guess Chandler is sort of more offensive than Gaethje is with his wrestling slightly. The main edge is probably Gaethje's leg kicks, even though Chandler has some great kicks. We'll speed through this a little bit because I think we blew our time budget on the Colby Kamaru fight, and it's getting late in New York for you, Luke. But who are you leaning to?
I'm okay.
You're all right? All right, cool. All right, another 30 minutes. No, just kidding. Who are you leaning towards in this one? Because I just feel like they're both going to go. They're both going to crash into each other. The only thing is Gaethje's defense has improved drastically over the last few fights, and he's really got these nice counters. And you could definitely see a situation where Chandler just kind of charges forward and Gaethje slips off and hits him with one. Who are you leaning towards here? And how big of a factor do you think those kicks are?
Real quick, just one last note on the co-main. If you go back to those 3 sets of pairs, the first fight of each pair was always shorter than the second fight. So in the first Joanna fight, it was 1 round. In the second, it was 5. First Jessica fight, less than 2. Second fight with Jessica, the entire distance. First fight with Zhang, 1 round. If past is prologue, I would expect a much different fight this time, although Rose might end up winning it just the same. Okay, but you're asking about the feature fight now between the 2 lightweights. Everything you said is correct, but I would add 2 points to that. 1, we should not lose sight of the fact that Michael Chandler outstruck Dan Hooker. Now, he didn't outstrike him for 15 minutes. He didn't beat him in a kickboxing bout. I'm not saying that he has overall more striking skill, but styles do make fights. He went low. If you go back and you watch the tape, I did a whole thing on it. Henry Hooft even messaged me and told me I did a good job. This is a true story. Nice. You go back and you look at the eyes of Michael Chandler. He's looking down and Hooker follows. And that's when that one, after he switches stances, and now as Hooker moves into it, he catches him up top. Dude, that's high level. Look at how he beat, after switching stances, Benson Henderson to get into the UFC. So this narrative about Justin Gaethje being different is entirely true. There's not a thing wrong about it. But I think people have lost sight a little bit about the fact that Michael Chandler is a vastly improved version of himself too. This is not the guy that kind of just bulldozed his way past Eddie Alvarez in Bellator. This is a much more sophisticated guy, although I think he still leans into some of his athleticism and some of his strengths, which is probably the right call. The one thing that, so I mentioned I had two things. The other thing that I think is not being accounted for here is durability. Now, what we know about it is that both guys are insanely tough. I don't mean to say otherwise, but you can't take as much punishment as the both of them have and then just be as normal as you ever were. I don't think they would tell you that. And if they are, they're probably not being honest with themselves. I think those guys have been in some fucking tough ass fights. And I think it has worn to this point a little bit more on Michael Chandler. He has been stopped with strikes, so has Gaethje, but it took a lot more effort to get him there. Now, it's also true that Chandler has been in fights like the second Alvarez fight where he took a ton of punishment and then just gutted his way through. I'm not here to say, you never know which punch is going to sit someone down, but if I had to be like, if you had to rank one or two who has shown more durability over time, I would say it's Justin Gaethje. It's relevant with two offensive powerhouses. You have to ask, how sturdy are they under that kind of firepower? The only other caveat to that, though, would be that Justin Gaethje, while he has shown more durability, has also taken a fucking metric ton of punishment. And at some point, the bottom's going to drop out on that if he keeps going. It's just that he's had a long layoff. And even in that Nurmagomedov fight, he didn't really take hardly any abuse. You know what I mean? It wasn't a tough-ass fight at all, whereas Chandler's coming off of a TKO loss, right? So, which is much sooner, too. So, I do think that when you're talking about two guys with this much horsepower in their offense, asking how durable they are is not unfair, and I would have to lean towards Gaethje if that ends up being the deciding factor.
Would you rather the winner gets the next title shot, Luke, or Islam, especially if Oliveira and Chandler both win?
Yeah, to me, I don't even think about the Chandler and Gaethje guys as the title shot guys. I mean, I realize that they're relevant and they're up there, but to me, it's like Islam. I don't even know how we're debating this. You know what I mean? I don't it's not that I don't care what Justin and Michael do on Saturday. I care deeply, but I don't care how impressively they win. None of them are jumping Islam in the queue to me. On my personal queue, I'll see what UFC ends up doing. I will tell you though that if you're asking me what is the most interesting permutation that could happen, or which one I'm hoping for, it's not that I would actually prefer Dustin Poirier win the title against Oliveira, because I just think a guy who's been that dedicated to the sport and has been such an ambassador for it, quite frankly, and has lived the values of a prize fighter, but a martial artist as well. It'd be nice to see some real hardware strapped around his waist. But in just thinking about the most interesting fights possible, to me, Oliveira and Makhachev is quite interesting, because I don't exactly know how that one might go on the floor. You could imagine Makhachev is a phenomenal grappler, but Oliveira might give him some problems. And on the feet, the old Oliveira would probably be overwhelmed by this Makhachev. But the new Oliveira, he's pretty tough, actually. He punched Kevin Lee's lights out. You know what I mean? He can hold, and Michael Chandler, he can hold his own. So that, to me, the Oliveira versus Makhachev fight, that's the one I would like to see most. But how everything goes and which way the wind blows, hard to say.
100%. Man, there's so many sexy fights on this card. You got Alex Pereira also making his debut. You got to think, man, if that guy wins, we could be seeing him fast track to potentially an Israel Adesanya fight. If Israel's even in the division, who knows? He might be up at light heavyweight. But he's got Robert Whittaker ahead of him as well, so many unknowns there. Other sexy fights are obviously Marlon Vera, Frankie Edgar, Shane Burgos, Billy Quarantillo. You got Ally Quinta, Bobby Green, Edmund Shabazian, Ian Gary. Lots to love there, but there he is, the guy. Follow the man at L Thomas News, at Morning Combat, and of course Morning Combat every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern. And for all the Aussies and the night owls, it's 1 a.m. Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday nights in Australia. I know you joke, Luke, you're like, oh, prime time, but hey, man, I'm only a year away from being a lifelong night owl. So there's a lot of people awake at that time. Give the Morning Combat YouTube channel a sub. Congrats on the 100K, and love everything you guys do, Luke. Appreciate your time, man.
Well, congrats on the 200K, and I appreciate the invite.
Thanks, Luke. Always fun with you, man.